Today is Friday, November 15th. Welcome back, Larry.
Thank God it's Friday, right?
Friday. Finally.
Yeah.
Larry, let's get started with the head of CIA under Donald Trump, whose name is John Ratcliffe.
Right, Radcliffe.
Yeah. How do you evaluate him? How do you assess him? What do we know about him?
Well, he was a lawyer, a prosecutor, a member of Congress, and then left Congress to become the director of national intelligence under Trump. And he did a good, as far as I could tell at the time, he did a good job. He's, he has his own, ideological perspectives, but it appears that he did not allow those ideological perspectives to override intelligence. I think he played the game straight. So, I think that's a good choice. Is he someone open to view Russia and China as non-threats? No, but that's 80% of Americans, unfortunately. I do what I can to try to educate, but people hold. They've been propagandized for so long; they hold particular views. But as far as a competent professional who's not going to go in with an ideological axe to grind, I don't see Ratcliffe as that. Now people can pull out clips of things he said in the past that are crazy, that are belligerent about Iran being terror. Yeah, he said those things, but it really boils down to does he try to fairly weigh the facts and reach a conclusion? And I think he's proven himself in the past that that's what he does. So I think the biggest the biggest point that he's been asked to address is releasing the JFK files, getting those out of CIA. And I've heard one theory about why those haven't been released, and it makes some sense. If you go back into the presidency of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, his brother Bobby was busy going after the organized crime. And in the United States, we've always thought of organized crime as strictly the mafia, the Italian mafia. But what we forget is there was a heavy Jewish presence in the mob back in the 50s in particular, 50s and early 60s. Meyer Lansky, famous, and Bugsy Siegel. He was dead by the time JFK was around. But what I've heard is that's the key thing they're hiding. Basically, it would raise questions about Israel and their role in that, from the standpoint of these criminals that had relationships with Israel. Let's not pretend that that's that didn't exist. So that may be one excuse. We'll see if Ratcliffe will allow that to come out, because I was told that was why Pompeo blocked it.
Here is one of those clips that you've mentioned.
Act of war of trying to assassinate President Trump, and perhaps most importantly, when they engage in the act of war of firing through its Houthi-controlled rebels ballistic missiles at 3 U.S. warships, and there had been no actions and no consequences to those acts of war by Iran, it unfortunately tells you how far the Democrats are willing to go to stop Donald Trump. And, I think larger at play here, Maria, is not just this short-term election, but that it really reveals the failed strategy of the Democrats over the last 10 years in dealing with Iran. The famous Obama doctrine, which was that, look, we can deter Iran diplomatically and it won't come at the expense of Israel. Well, Barack Obama was wrong. He misunderstood the lethality and the evil nature of the Iranian regime. And what Israel has done is essentially employ the Trump doctrine, a maximum pressure campaign, understanding that the only way to deter terrorists like Iran and their proxies is to put your foot on their throat. And Israel has done that. We should be assisting Israel in doing so.
Yeah, with that, he's detached from reality. Okay, so you know, the people get their, they start clutching their pearls at this stuff. Oh my God. Yeah, he's typical. He is not saying something unique. The majority of Americans believe that crap. So, I hope people aren't surprised by it. Let me comment a little bit on this so-called Iranian attempt to assassinate Donald Trump. What a load of male bovine excrement that is. This is an intelligence operation fabricated. I'm not sure if it was at the FBI behest, the CIA behest, but this thing stinks to high heaven. The way the press release was put out, and then when you go in and read the criminal indictment, here are the key facts. Farhad Sakari was born in 1973. Came to the United States somewhere around 1979, 1980. He was born in Afghanistan. So the Soviets invade. Apparently his parents fled here to the States. I guess they settled in New York City. And in 1994, he gets jailed, arrested for robbery. And it must have been armed robbery because he spent 14 years in prison. So while in prison, he meets 4 other guys. One of them is Rivera, Carlisle Rivera. The other one is named Jonathan Lodeholt, I believe. And then the third one is identified as co-conspirator number 1. Oh, that's interesting. They don't list the name. And he's in jail for 14 years. When he's released, apparently, in 2008, they deport him. Well, if you're from Afghanistan, guess where you get deported to? Afghanistan. Then, according to this criminal indictment, we don't hear any more about him until 11 years later, 2019. He's in Sri Lanka. He's in Sri Lanka with co-conspirator number 1. And what do? They get busted by the Sri Lankan narcotics police with 92 kilograms of heroin. Now, can you imagine somebody from Afghanistan having access to heroin? I can't. I mean, please. And so here's where it gets really interesting. Apparently they don't get imprisoned. Now, I've got one theory, but I've checked it out with an FBI buddy, and I've checked it out with a CIA buddy, and I still have one of my DEA friends to talk to. But I think that heroin bust was achieved with the help of the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA. And they would bust those guys. And hey, when you get a load that big, you always give the boys a chance to play. Hey, can I give up information for where all this heroin came from, and maybe work back up the chain? So I think that was the place where an intelligence relationship of some sort was developed, if not with Farhad, with co-conspirator number 1. The next thing we hear is Farhad is in Iran, working in the oil and gas industry. Now you tell me, you're Iranian. The Iranians just love to have guys with criminal records who've been dealing in heroin come to Iran, right? The mullahs are really cool with that. They think, yeah, man, the more heroin sellers we get here, the better, right? Wrong. So, how did this guy wind up there? And then, according to the story, he all of a sudden gets approached by the IRGC. The IRGC, I guess, walking down and said, hey, here's a guy who's an ex-con who lived in America. Let's get in touch with him. And so the IRGC guy that they get in touch with is named Soleimani. What a coincidence. And even in the criminal indictment, it says, oh, we don't know if he's related to General Soleimani. Yeah, good name. So this IRGC guy comes to him and says, hey, we've got this Iranian in New York that's ripped us off for $250,000. We want your help to kill him. Do you think you can line some guys up? Oh, yeah. So here's Farhad, who apparently gets on the phone with Carlisle Rivera. Remember, he hasn't seen him in now 16 years, apparently. He got out of prison, hasn't been back to the United States. Mr. Rivera's working, in New York City, as well as this Lodholt guy. And he recruits them, supposedly, to go whack this Iranian guy. I mean, what I think happened here is, and then the FBI, how does the FBI learn about a lot of this? Oh, they do a phone interview with him in Tehran. Hello, Mr. Farhad. Yeah, I'm Agent Johnson with the FBI. We'd like to ask you some questions. Would you talk to us, sir? Oh, okay, good. Yeah, the Iranian intelligence service, they don't track any phone calls, right? They don't monitor any calls coming from the United States, particularly the FBI. And yet this guy's supposedly walking around Tehran now after confessing to, the IRGC told me to go, and they wanted me also to kill Trump. Okay, do you see how ridiculous this thing is? And that's the crap the FBI put out the other day. Well, why'd they do it? I can come up with a couple of possible reasons, motives. One, they're doing it because now that Trump's elected, hey, Mr. Trump, look, we're not really bad guys. We caught the guys that were trying to kill you. Please show us some love. Or option two, hey, we gotta make Iran look like the biggest enemy because Iran's our next target. Which is sort of what Ratcliffe was doing, going back to what his comments. I mean, if Ratcliffe genuinely believes that, he's not going to be the first CIA director that has an ideological point of view that allows no other point of view to come in. When I was at CIA, Robert Gates was there. Gates was a diehard anti-communist. The Soviets are everywhere. Couldn't entertain any other point of view. In fact, one day we had a South African analyst who he had an interesting name. He had the same name as the American who went to do coverage of the Communist Revolution in 1917. And this analyst had written a piece where he was asked, the White House wanted to know, is Nelson Mandela a communist? And the analyst had written a piece, and those pieces then go up the chain of command and they get edited. And it came back with an edit. Because his bottom line conclusion was, Nelson Mandela is not a communist. And Bobby Gates changed just one little word in that sentence. What word do you think that is? Let's test your abilities as an intelligence analyst here, Nima. What word do you think he changed in that sentence?
He was a
Not! Take out not! He was a communist. So, my point is, here's Ratcliffe saying some incredibly, in my view, stupid things about Iran, but it reflects the narrative, the meme that dominates Washington, D.C. But against that backdrop, here he's saying that, and Trump's saying, oh, yeah, man, we need to, Israel needs to go blow Iran out of the water. But what happened yesterday in New York City? Elon Musk met with Iran's UN ambassador. So, what I read into this is, and as we go back and watch Trump in the past, he used to talk about blowing North Korea out of the water, right? And then the next thing you know, he's over there meeting with Kim Jong-un. So Trump has this public bombast, says the most extreme stuff, takes the most extreme position, and then we'll go negotiate and sometimes come back and find a place in the middle. So, all I can say is this. If Trump does not follow through on his policy to not be a war president and finds a way to go to war with Iran, it'll be the end of his presidency. He will have destroyed whatever little credibility he has left. I don't think he wants to do that, but, I'm just giving you my opinion. All I can do is watch what he's done. He has made some promises. He didn't promise, I'm not going to bring any pro-Zionist people into my administration. He never said that. He did say he was going to bring in Tulsi Gabbard, Robert F. Kennedy, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Elon Musk. First week, he's done that. At least, placed them in nomination or identified jobs that they're going to get. So, I'm looking at what he's doing and not paying too much attention to the words of these people.
And why Elon Musk? Because his position is not in that category if he wants to talk with Iranians. Why did he choose Elon Musk to do that, in your opinion, if that happened? New York Times reported that, if I'm not mistaken. You're talking about that.
He's a billionaire. He's a wildly successful businessman. He's recognized as, one of the geniuses of the modern era. He has been to Israel. He's met with the Israelis. He's, exchanged kisses with Bibi Netanyahu, I think. So he's got some credibility on that side, and he's got access to Trump. So when Musk goes to the Iranians, they know they're not hearing from, some, low-level State Department toad. They're hearing from guy that's picking out furniture with Donald Trump. So that's why he's got credibility.
Yeah. Here is what Donald Trump said in 2015, Larry. He's talking about Sheldon Adelson Marco Rubio being in the pocket of the family of Adelson family, and which gave him $100 million in this election, 2024.
Well, apparently not. Apparently she promised to give $100 million, but what I've heard is she only coughed up 30. she welched. So she didn't buy herself a lot of favors with that. So, but it's the meme. But that's another perfect example. Trump wasn't afraid to blast the Adelsons for buying Marco Rubio, was he? And then he'll turn around and deal with them. He is not ideologically rigid. I think that's the mistake I think people make in trying to categorize Trump. They think he is this inflexible, rigid ideologue that I've got these beliefs and I'm not letting go of them. Yeah, he's the art of the deal. That was his book. The art of the deal was trying to figure out how to get a deal done. And, sometimes you have to make some concessions. And so I think that's sort of how Trump's operating even right now. It was like with this decision, the vote for the Senate Majority Leader. Trump could have come out publicly and said, look, I've got this mandate and we're not going to go back to business as usual in Washington. Rick Scott's my man, and I expect the senators to line up and vote for Rick Scott. He didn't do that because the other two, Cornyn and Thune, are a couple of, deep state toads. But the report is that apparently Thune went and met with Trump, and Trump cut a deal with him. Basically, okay, I won't rally the troops to try to oppose you, and I won't unleash a primary campaign to get rid of you, as long as you assure me that you're going to get my nominees through. Putin apparently took the deal. And, you know, if you make a deal with Trump and then reverse on it, then you got an enemy. And he will get you. I mean, there are all sorts of stories circulating, you know, again, how deals were made, backroom stuff done. And people say, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. Well, no, I'm telling you what people who have access to folks that would know this kind of information are saying. Apparently, after the June debate with Joe Biden, Biden got in contact with Trump and basically said, look, I know I'm not going to win, and I want assurance that that you're not going to come after me and my family. So if you assure me of that, I'll make sure that the cheating that was done to make me president will not occur this time on the scale that it did. And because we have the evidence, it was, you know, you go back and look in 2008, Barack Obama got 68 million votes. And then in 2012, he went down to like 65 million, but still won. Then in 2016, Hillary Clinton got 86 million. Then in 2020, Joe Biden got 81 million. You're going, whoa, 15 million more votes, 16 million more votes. And then this year, Kamala Harris is back down to 66, 67 million. So you get that kind of oddity. Now, when I heard this story, and I heard this 5 weeks ago now, it was a month before the election, I thought, maybe not. Then just this last weekend, we heard from the Biden camp that they admitted, saying prior to the debate in June with Donald Trump, their internal polling was showing that Biden was going to lose upwards of 400 electoral votes. He would get wiped out. And they knew that before the debate, and then after the debate, they knew that they were in trouble. So, yeah, is it possible that Trump cut a deal with Biden? Well, let's watch and see. I'm willing to bet we're going to see Donald Trump come out at some point, issue a pardon for Hunter Biden, and say, hey, we've got to put aside all this partisan attacks and going after political enemies. And then his Department of Justice will be free to go after Barack Obama and Bill and Hillary Clinton. Because he said, hey, I didn't go after Biden's, but these other people have actually committed some real crimes. They needed to be handled. I think that's how it's going to play. I may be wrong, and you get to have me back on and say, Johnson, you're a moron. Look at all the stupid things you said. But if I'm right, you know, you're going to have to up my pay. I'm asking for a raise.
Larry, just to consider what's going on in the Middle East, here is an old clip of Donald Trump just describing what's going on between Israel and Palestinians. And it doesn't seem that he doesn't understand what's going on there. He totally understands what's happening and what is the main issue. Here is what he said, Larry. It's an old clip, but it's important to watch it.
But the key is a lasting peace. If we have a lasting peace, first thing you have to ask, do they both want to make it? I have a real question as to whether or not both sides wants to make it. I have a real question as to one side in particular, whether or not they want to make it. Well, I don't want to say that right now. I think one side actually would like a deal, and I think the other one maybe doesn't want a deal, to be honest. I don't want to say it. No, look, we show our cards too much in the I wrote The Art of the Deal. We show our cards too much. So if I get into that, I don't want to say this and that, and then they'll come and they'll say, well, Trump is biased one way or the other. I think there's a chance that you could probably make a deal if you had a real deal maker, if you had somebody that knew what he or she was doing. In my opinion, if Israel wants to make a deal, I think a deal could be made. I think a lot is going to do with Israel, and look, it's going to have to do with both sides, but a lot will have to do with Israel and whether or not Israel wants to make the deal.
I thought he wanted to make a deal more than Netanyahu. And I will be honest, I had a great meeting with him, Abbas, right? I had a great meeting with him, and we spent a lot of time together, talked about many things. And it was almost like a father. I mean, he was so nice. Couldn't have been nicer. And after meeting with Bibi for 3 minutes, I looked at him and said, "You don't want to make a deal, do you?" And he said, "Well, and the fact is, I don't think Bibi ever wanted to make a deal.
Why?
I thought the Palestinians were impossible, that the Israelis would do anything to make peace and a deal. I found that not to be true."
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think he's changed that view at all. But he also, he's got the political realities here in the United States. These diehard Zionists, and Zionism, in my view, it's a cult. In my view, it's evil, and it is it has brought so much death and destruction. But Trump he's exactly right. The Palestinians would make a deal in a heartbeat. Hamas and Hezbollah would make a deal. It's the Zionists who are not giving up, because this land is our land. God gave this land to us. And it says so in the Bible. It says so in the Old Testament. So it must be true. That book, that particular section of, if you want to call it, Holy Scripture, in my view, was it was written by, it comes out of Judaism. It was written by Jews, not written by non-Jews. I mean, it'd be one thing if the Egyptians had written it and they said, "Oh yeah, listen, we were talking to God the other day, and God said, hey, see those people over there, those Israelites? They're my people. They're my homies, okay? And I promised all this land to them, and I love them more than I love you, okay? Just understand, they're special. You're not. Okay? If that had come out of the Egyptians, I could buy that. But, if you're giving me the book that you've written, and the star of it is Nema, and Nema's the best, and Nema's the brightest, and Nema's entitled to everything, do you think Nema had any role in making that the substance? I think so. Sorry.
Larry, in your opinion, with the head of Pentagon, how do you find him? His name is Pete
Hegseth.
Yeah, Hegseth. He's so young, and in your opinion, what was the reason behind this decision? Is he going to, because Donald Trump is not happy with the situation in Pentagon.
Correct.
What is he going to do, in your opinion?
I don't understand the choice. I mean, Trump's got some reason what he's doing. I guarantee you this. He did not select Pete Hegseth because Donald Trump thought Hegseth was the best qualified in terms of knowledge and experience to run the Pentagon. Okay? Put that aside. I think it's really, in a way, a form of Donald Trump trolling the Pentagon and the generals, sending them a clear message. It ain't going to be business as usual. You ignored, disobeyed my orders the last time. You conspired with the CIA and the FBI to undermine my presidency the last time. I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen this time. I think that's the message he's sending was Hegseth. Because, Pete's a nice guy, but he's younger than my son. And he's really got not a very deep understanding at all of either Russia, China, or the Middle East. It really doesn't appear to know much of the history there at all. So I don't think he'll get approved, get it through the confirmation process. Maybe he will, but if he gets through the confirmation process, it'll only be because the Jewish money that lined up behind Trump will line up behind him. But, you know, I know a couple of those. I know one of those defense lobbyists was my neighbor in Bethesda, Maryland. And he's not happy with this choice at all. And so there's a lot of money at stake in this. But I think Trump understands that. So I think Trump is sort of playing a game with DOD and selecting Hegseth. But, you know, those clips that you just played about the Middle East and Israel and the Palestinians, that, I think, tells you exactly how Trump's mind works. He wants to make a deal. He starts off believing certain things, and then he sees the reality, and then he comes up with a strategy to deal with that. I don't think we should underestimate that. But as far as, you know, people are going to get on and start, you know, claiming, oh, Hegseth's a terrible choice. Yeah, I agree. He's a terrible choice. I don't think he's going to wind up on the job. If he does wind up on the job, he's not going to know what to do. You know, he doesn't know the first thing about running a massive bureaucracy like that. You know, I wouldn't be qualified to do that. I'd have some ideas, or what I would do, I would know who to bring in to work with me to manage and get that thing under control. Oh, absolutely. I could do that. I don't think Hegseth's that kind of person. You know, if he was, I don't think he knows who to bring in. And to that extent, can't rule out the possibility that he's going in there as a figurehead, and that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, that their first task is to, you know, figure out how to whittle down this $850 billion monster of a budget, because it eats up a lot of the budget. If they can find $200 billion savings there, guess what? Maybe they come in and say, you know what, we got to close about 400 bases around the world. We don't need those. So there's something, again, there's something at work here, and people just need to remain calm.
We cannot ignore the role of Pentagon in the latest events between the United States and Russia, that meeting between Starmer and Biden, in which Pentagon played a very important role in just ignoring the decision, just rejecting the decision to send long-range missiles to Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And with this guy in office, here is what he said, Larry, recently. It's so concerning.
I think this is a moment for the Israeli government, not the U.S. government, the Israeli government, to take action against Iran to prevent an Iranian bomb. Because the West has said forever, we can't have Tehran, we can't have the mullahs with a nuclear shield. Imagine what this conflict would look like. Imagine what the region and the world would look like. Now, Israel's already done a lot of covert things over the years to push them back.
Assassinating,
you know, hacking into their facilities, damaging their centrifuges. They're going to need to do more of that, because clearly this administration is not going to, and hasn't deterred anything. After the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, there's little appetite for the idea of regime change or nation building. However, Iran with a bomb is a really big problem, so let Israel deal with that.
Exactly. Why do we restrain Israel from taking?
We shouldn't. It's ridiculous. It's an existential threat to them. Let them do what they need to based on the energy production in Iran and the nuclear facilities. In fact, Iran would already have a bomb if not for Israel. But prevent them from a bomb so the threat to our nation does not amplify even more.
Yeah. Iran with a...
Yeah, I'm going to start singing "Fly Me to the Moon." Yeah, hey, Hegseth, you can just fly me to the moon. We can get there tomorrow, right? Yeah, let Israel take care of it. Well, There's one reason Israel hasn't done so, because they don't have the ability. Israel likes to talk tough. They're only good at killing women and children, okay? That's what they do best. They kill unarmed people, elderly people, people who can't fight back. Because when they run up against somebody like HEZBOLLAH is happening right now in southern Lebanon, they're being defeated. Israel's being defeated. They're losing soldiers, they're not taking territory, and they're not weakening HEZBOLLAH. They keep saying, oh, yeah, we've destroyed 80% of the rockets. Well, there must be a boatload of 20% left, because they shelled Haifa, they're shelling all the north. They're hitting them every day. Every single day they're hitting them. And Israel can't stop it. And in fact, every time those rockets are launched, Israel's using up some air defense systems. And when they use them up, they're not going to be easily replaced. So the notion that this is Top Gun 2, that idiotic movie with Tom Cruise, where they get to, fly into Iran and through the valleys and take out the nuclear sites. No, that's Hollywood. Real life, Israel doesn't have the ability, nor does the United States, the ability to penetrate, destroy those sites, and not escalate this into a much broader war. We do not and never have had the ability in any war with just one strike to take out all enemy capabilities. I mean, even when we had the atomic bomb at the end of World War II, we could only drop one at a time then. And, one, and we'll wait and see what happens. Iran is a big country. It has been preparing for more than 20 years to be attacked by the United States and by Israel. They haven't been sitting around waiting, pretending that wasn't going to happen. They've absolutely prepared for it. And unlike Israel, unlike the United States, Iran has experienced an invasion by a foreign enemy backed by the United States. That was called Iraq, in the Iran-Iraq War.
And Soviet Union.
Yeah. So it is, it's one of those things that guys like Heck, again, this just underscores his ignorance. He's read what's been written in some op-ed, and somebody that, this is their story. Yeah, if all we got to do is turn Israel loose, and man, they'll settle things. Yeah, no, they get themselves killed. That's what they'll do. Israel will get itself killed, will destroy itself. That's where our role is trying to keep Israel from doing that to itself. But, as Trump, that clip with Trump is great. It's illustrated. When he asked me, hey, what do you want a deal? No, they don't want a deal. The only thing they want is to exterminate the Palestinians and take their land. That's what they want. And that's why Trump was saying, yeah, if that's what they want, there may not be a negotiated end to this deal.
Larry, how did you find the position of Tulsi Gabbard and Matt Gaetz? These are two important personalities, in my opinion. All of these people, two of them are so interesting for me.
Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard and Matt Gaetz. How did you find these two positions?
Well, let's start with Tulsi. I think it's a terrific choice. Tulsi's extremely smart. She's got good judgment. Yeah, she's pro-Israel. Oh, you guys, these people, like Brian Berletic got his, shorts all in a knot over this. Oh, there's all these neocons. Calm down, Brian. Calm down. Because that's the reality in America, unfortunately. All right? So, but within that, you got to look at Tulsi, her judgment, her ability to her experience, both in Congress and in the military. I think she's really a terrific choice because she'll be in a position to, once she's confirmed, she'll oversee. They're now saying it's 18 intelligence agencies. I don't know where they got 18. It used to be 17. And even the 17 is a misleading number because there's really only about 6 agencies that actually collect intelligence and disseminate it. Everybody else is a consumer. But by virtue of that oversight, she'll be in charge of the presidential daily brief. And, she very well could decide, hey, I'm going to go down with the briefers every day to brief President Trump. That's why she's in front of Trump every day talking to him about international issues. And in that way, he'll actually come to see, she's a really smart lady. And she's given some thought to some of these issues about, what serves U.S. interests best. She'll also she'll have oversight of covert action. All covert action proposed by the CIA, she'll get to weigh in on. You can't necessarily veto it, but she'll certainly have a voice at the table. So she's good. Gates, he's a joke. He's not going to be approved. There's something else going on here. This may have been even a backroom deal to get rid of him, get him out of the Congress. It's possible that Mike Johnson went to Trump and said, look, we got a real problem with this. If Gates stays in Congress, there's going to be a report coming out that's going to raise some real questions about his prior conduct, committing statutory rape. That reportedly when he was 20 or 21, he had sex with a 17-year-old. Now, legally that's statutory rape. So they may have said, hey, make the nomination, then he'll be forced to resign. We'll tell him if he resigns, that report won't come out. And then the report's going to come out anyway, and he's then out of Congress and out of your hair. There may be some play like that. But I do not believe that Trump selected Gates because he thought Gates would be, just the best attorney general ever. Yeah, you could select him for loyalty. There's certainly that's at play. But I Mr. Art of the deal, I think there's some other deal working here. So, but Gates, DOJ needs to be cleaned up. So the last thing you want to have is a candidate for attorney general who's the hottest target that everybody wants to shoot at. He'll spend so much time, trying to avoid bullets shot at him that he won't be able to focus on the job of actually cleaning up DOJ. He's like that scene from Matrix where Neo's got all those bullets coming at him and he's dodging and flopping back and forth. That'll be Gates, and you don't get any work done. So I don't know if he'll make it to confirmation and lose there, or will withdraw before then. Most likely he'll withdraw before then, and Trump will probably nominate someone else.
The other thing would be the question many people are thinking of is, why did Donald Trump not use Douglas MacGregor as his national security advisor? He didn't need to go to the Congress to approve that. He could have, because he understands what's going on in the Middle East. He totally informed about what's going on in Ukraine. He's a very mature, he's so, whatever, even with China, he knows everything. He understands totally what's going on between the United States, Russia, China, even in the Middle East. But at the end of the day, it seems that nobody appreciates that.
Are you Doug McGregor's press secretary? Is he paying you to say those things? No. Doug would be, Doug's great. Doug would be magnificent. We need someone like Doug McGregor in that role. Unfortunately, I think the selection of someone like Waltz was probably influenced by Don Jr. Then, I don't think McGregor has had a relationship with Don Jr. McGregor's relationship was with Trump. And I could see Don Jr. making the case, hey, we got to get younger blood in here. We got to get away from this perception that the Republicans are a bunch of old men because, let's face it, Dad, you're 78 years old. You're still, you don't look it, you don't act it, but you are 78 years old. Let's get some people in here that show that we're the future. I think that's what happened. I don't know, Doug should have been in that position, but apparently not going to happen.
Yeah. Here is the U.S. ambassador to Israel talking about.
What is this like? Is this like getting waterboarded with video? Yeah. I'm going to file a human rights complaint against you, Nima the torturer. All right, go ahead and play it.
Because I want to put it on and then compare it to Pete Hegseth, because he had the same kind of view on Israel.
He's a Christian. They're both Christian
If we mean
Zionists.
two governments holding the same piece of real estate is irrational and unworkable. If there is a two-state solution, the Palestinian state needs to be outside the boundaries of the nation of Israel. There's plenty of land in the world that we could find a place and say, okay, let's create a Palestinian state. There are certain words I refuse to use. There is no such thing as a West Bank. It's Judea and Samaria. There's no such thing as a settlement. They're communities, they're neighborhoods, they're cities. There's no such thing as an occupation.
Jerusalem. And today, Jennifer and I and others had a chance to go see the Western Wall of the Temple Mount, the Western Wall tunnels, so much of the old city. And as you stand there, you can't help but behold the miracle before you. And it got me thinking about another miracle that I hope all of you don't see too far away. Because 1917 was a miracle, 1948 was a miracle, 1967 was a miracle, 2017, the declaration of Jerusalem as the capital was a miracle, and there's no reason why the miracle of the reestablishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible. I don't know how it would happen. You don't know how it would happen, but I know that it could happen. That's all I know. And a step in that process, a step in every process, is the recognition that facts and activities on the ground truly matter. And that's why going and visiting Judea and Samaria, understanding that sovereignty, the very sovereignty of Israeli soil, and Israeli cities, locations, is a critical next step to showing the world that this is the land for Jews and the land of Israel.
Yeah, I mean,
they even don't like to call it West Bank. They call it something else.
well,
Judea.
let's call it Judea Samaria. I mean, they're cherry picking history. So the reality is, Jews have not lived, dominated, ruled in Israel for more than 2,000 years. Okay? So Huckabee says, yeah, there's lots of land in the world. Hey, I got an idea. Let's put all the Jews in Arkansas, where he used to be governor. Let's take away your property, Mike Huckabee, and let's move some people into your house because we've declared that God gave him this land. Think he'd be cool with that? No, he wouldn't. Yeah, this Christian Zionism disgusts me. It's sickening. It is the antithesis of what Christianity is supposed to be. It's a justification for racism. It's a justification for genocide. It's horrific. You know, they clean this up and pretend there were 12 tribes originally, remember? 10 of those got swept away by history. Only 2 left. And even those 2, they stopped ruling in Israel. What was Israel, Palestine, by 200 BC. Okay, they haven't been running the place. King Herod was, he was Jewish actually in a way, out of a particular sect. So it's just this nonsensical idea that because we take a book written by Jews and say, oh, these promises are all for the Jews. Okay, yeah. And we say it's from God. And I know I'm going to offend a lot of, devout believers out there, but the Old Testament of the Bible is not, in my view, a holy book. It's not sacred scripture. It is not the word of God that was dictated to a bunch of people. It was written with a particular purpose. But the fact is now, here in this modern age, you've got people believing it and then using that as an excuse to kill women and children. But it's in the will of God. So, yeah. If you want to get into the religious thing, yeah, I believe in a supreme being that doesn't relish the death and murder of people, but also a supreme being that has given people the right to choose. And if people choose to do that, they are acting against the will of that divine being. Let's put it that way. But instead, we get this nonsense out of Hegseth and out of Huckabee to justify turning the Palestinians into non-human beings. And what's really ironic about it, and Huckabee may not even be clued in on this, a lot of those Palestinians, at least 20% of the Palestinians back in 1917, maybe even higher, like 30%, are Christians. They had been living there since the time of Christ. I mean, they're ancestors. So, I mean, it really is. This religious nonsense is going to get us all killed.
Yeah. Here is, Larry, what New York Times reported about the aid going to Gaza. If you look at this, the source is Israeli military. It shows that the aid reduced, but not that much. But when you go to the image that UN is giving us, it's totally different.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally starvation of the people in Gaza.
Yeah, that's what that's what Israel's very clear. That's what their intent is. Doesn't matter what the army stats put out. Eliminating the Palestinian is the Zionist goal. They broker no compromise on that. And it's if Trump, the clip you played earlier, Trump he understood what was going on. Now, if in his policies he enables that, shame on him. He will go down in history along with Joe Biden with a lot of blood on his hands. But I think the conflict still is moving in the direction where Israel's going to destroy itself in this process. This is such an inhuman policy that it will ultimately destroy them.
Here is a report of a British surgeon of Gaza and what's happening there.
Found particularly disturbing was that a bomb would drop maybe on a crowded, tented area, and then the drones would come down and...
Please take your time. We're incredibly grateful that you're making the time to be here today, and I can only imagine just how it has impacted you and will continue to impact you. And I feel, because you can't unsee what you've seen, but being able to share that with us really helps us hold legislators particularly to account. So we do appreciate the time that you're making for us today. Thank you.
So the drones would come down and pick off civilians, children. And we had description after description. This is not, an occasional thing. This was day after day after day, operating on children who would say, I was lying on the ground after a bomb had dropped, and this quadcopter came down and hovered over me and shot me. And that's clearly a deliberate act, and it was a persistent act, persistent targeting of civilians day after day. We had 1 or 2 mass casualty incidents every day.
Yeah. Let's not forget Bibi Netanyahu's definition of terrorism. It's one of the few things that Netanyahu's ever said that I agree with. And it was in that interview with William F. Buckley. I think you were the first one that played it. And defined terrorism as violence against civilians for a political purpose. By that definition, Israel is the biggest terrorist state in the world today. No one else. Israel stands alone in that regard and deserves to be treated as terrorists should be treated. Maybe we're on the road to that, with Turkey deciding finally to cut all diplomatic relations with Israel. Other countries, they just need to shun them, have nothing to do with them. But that includes cutting off the oil, cutting off all trade, cutting off all finance. Just, do what you do to a tumor. Cut it out.
You've mentioned about Elon Musk talking with Iranians in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be so much important right now, because at the end of the day, Donald Trump has to decide if he wants to send US troops there to help Israel, or he wants to find some sort of solution, political solution for the conflict. It seems that he's going to a direction of finding a political settlement, something like that. But do you think at the end of the day, he would have some sort of leverage on Netanyahu to do that?
Yeah. Cut off all the aid to Netanyahu. I'll make a prediction here. I'll be willing to bet that some form of the JCPOA will come back into life, and Trump will take credit for it. He'll get the deal. He'll bring peace. People say, oh, he's a narcissist. Show me a president in the last 40 years that hasn't been a narcissist, okay? Just stop with that. And the degrees of narcissism. Oh, Barack Obama is Mr. Humility? Come on. George W. Bush, aw shucks? No. So, Trump, like any of these presidents, wants to have a legacy. And the last legacy he wants, he's made it clear, is not to be a war president, to be a president who's brought about peace. And that would be the ultimate deal if he can pull that off. I don't know if he can. But they're going to, the landscape, the diplomatic landscape has changed from what it was when he was last president. Russia and China are very strong, and that relationship's growing stronger, particularly, when you look at China listening to the likes of these attacks from the things that Hegseth has said and others, these, they're called China hawks. China is not looking to move away from Russia. China is looking to move closer to Russia. I do know that with, sort of the foreign policy establishment, their prescription is to develop a relationship with Russia, peel Russia off from China to isolate China. That's what they're talking about doing. And I'm saying, guys, you don't understand what's happened here. This is not China and Russia from 40 years ago, where the Soviets had concerns about the Chinese and Chinese had concerns about the Soviets. They're now in a rowboat together, and they're both rowing together. They're not finding ways to fight one another. They're finding ways to work together across the board. So the U.S. is going to have to rethink that policy, because its policy to, quote, isolate China, that ain't going to happen either. Trump, I hope, is smart enough to come to the realization that the United States, yeah, we want to make America great again, but the United States can no longer call the shots internationally like it used to. It's a new world, and we're gonna have to learn how to work and play well with others. Relearn the lessons of kindergarten.
Right now in Israel, they're talking about the new defense minister of Israel Katz. He's talking about disarming Hezbollah, one of the main goals right now.
Yeah, hey.
Is that possible, Larry, in your opinion? Even with the help coming from the United States?
I'm going to win the Mega Million Powerball. You know, I'm going to win that too. Yeah. He's got as much chance of doing that as I have of winning the Mega Million, okay? Which is to say, what is it, 1 in 100 million chances? Did you see the look? I thought maybe you were going to play the video of when he's here's Katz saying that, and the general sitting beside him, he's like Scooby Doo. He goes, you know what? What are you smoking over there, baby?
Let me play it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's here.
Oh my God. No, or the general maybe had to go.
מהדוושה ולא נאפשר שום הסדרה שהיא לא תכלול את השגת יעדי המלחמה, שזה פירוק החיזבאללה מנשקו, זה השגתו מעבר לליטני, ובעיקר יצירת התנאים האמיתיים.
Yeah.
The moment he was shocked, what is
he was like, what did you say? You know, because look, this is why Gallant and Netanyahu agreed on getting rid of the Palestinians. Okay, so it's not like they had a disagreement on that front. But Gallant was saying, no, we're this southern Lebanon thing, no. It's too risky. We're going to get too many people killed. We're going to suffer too many losses. That's why I got rid of him. That was one of the reasons. And so here's Israel Katz. Charge! And the Israelis are getting waxed. You know, they had 6 killed the other day in just one incident. And I think I used this comparison with you before. The state of Israel is roughly the size of New York City. Okay? And in the course of the last year, there have been 1,000 Israeli soldiers killed. Not wounded, killed. Wounded are about 4,000. Can you imagine what the impact in New York City would be if in a course of a year you had 1,000 police officers killed in the line of duty? It would send shockwaves through society. And in fact, the other day, when those 6 were killed, one of the TV stations declined to play the nightly there was a comedy show scheduled for that night to go on. Oh, they weren't going to have that. I mean, remember after, you don't remember, but here in the United States after 9/11, all the night comedian show, the night talk shows, they shut down. There wasn't anything for about a week or two. Nobody felt like laughing. Well, guess what? They ain't laughing in Tel Aviv and Haifa and Jerusalem. And because Hezbollah is a formidable foe, and they're not disarmed, and there's no way in hell Israel can disarm them, or that the United States and Israel together could disarm them. Ain't gonna happen. But when you get people that are entertaining fantastical ideas, Israel Katz is no different than Pete Hegseth. In fact, Israel Katz is in some regards sort of like a Jewish version of Pete Hegseth. Think of it that way.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Larry, for being with us today. Great pleasure as always.
Okay. Thank you.
at least we have some sort of hope that Donald Trump would change something in Middle East and in Ukraine.
Well, look, either Trump changes it, or he's sowed the seeds of his own failure. I like to believe that he learned something from his first go round. We'll find out. I'm not losing sleep over it right now with Matt Gaetz and Pete Hegseth and I think those are dreadful choices, but I'm not sure that they'll even get on the job. But we'll see.
Yeah. See you on Monday.
Okay. Later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.